The first breath he drew after death tasted of ice and iron. It rasped through a throat that had once been neatly severed in the dank underbelly of Baelor September, yet now knit whole by art older than dragons. Ned Stark lay upon a bier of weirwood roots that spiraled like bleached serpents through black soil. Moon-pale fingers of bark pressed into the wool of his cloak, whispering in a tongue only ravens remembered. He tried to rise, but the weight of memory pinned him faster than any chain. Catelyn's grief-stricken scream, Arya's horror, Joffrey's smile. Phantoms flickered behind his eyes until a sigh of wind stripped them away. He was not alone. A single torch guttered in a niche of damp stone, casting red veins across mossy walls. The chamber smelled of wet earth and old blood. Shadows shifted, revealing a hunched silhouette wrapped in furs as gray as dusk. Eddard Stark. The voice was brittle but unbowed. Open your eyes fully. The roots have drunk your sorrow long enough. He obeyed because obedience was bred into bone, first to his father, then to duty, then to death itself. Vision steadied. Before him knelt Leaf, the child of the forest he had glimpsed only in Bran's tales. Her golden cat's eyes shone with sorrow older than kingdoms. Why? Ned's own voice sounded like rusted steel scraping from a scabbard. Leaf placed a small hand, bark smooth, upon his temple. The song of ice requires its still point. The wolf must rise where oaths have failed. He struggled to fathom prophecy, but duty he understood. My children, scattered by storm, yet they remain threads in the loom. Leaf's gaze drifted, as if she listened to needles clacking far away. The lion's cubs tighten their claws round the realm. If they are not broken soon, the north will bleed until the snows melt forever. Ned touched the line of his neck. A pink scar traced where executioner's steel had kissed him. Lord Tywin, Cersei, the boy king. He tasted ash. I failed to stop them once. The gods grant second harvests only to those willing to sow again. Leaf gestured toward a cairn of stone. Upon it rested ice. The Valyrian steel greatsword the Lannisters had melted into a gaudy twin of crimson and gold. Yet here it lay whole, dark ripples gleaming like a frozen river beneath winter stars. How? The question died. What mattered was that the blade waited. Take it, Leaf whispered. But remember, the heart of winter beats beyond petty vengeance. You must dismantle the lion root and branch, yet leave the realm standing. She rose, every movement a sigh of leaves in autumn. The wolf that seeks only blood becomes the beast the children fear. A silence followed, deep and trembling with unseen drums. Ned grasped ice. Familiar heft returned to calloused palms, and with it the gravity of oaths sworn before the heart tree. He straightened. Bones creaked, but strength flowed like meltwater in spring. The torch died, yet a faint silver glow emanated from veins in the weirwood roots. Footfalls echoed as Ned climbed a spiral of narrow steps. Each stride pulled him from the underground crypt into night air so cold it scoured lungs clean. He emerged beneath tangled branches of a heart tree older than Winterfell, a secret grove far to the north where the wall's shadow loomed like a slumbering giant. Above, the aurora danced green and violet, painting the snow-clad world in ghostly fire. Ned eased into the hush, feeling the north's pulse in his marrow. Home beckoned, but first the world of men awaited reckoning. Dawn cast pink banners across the Frostfangs when Ned reached the rag-and-bone village hugging the wall's forgotten gate, Shadowmoss. Wildlings still lingered after Stannis's failed bargain. Gaunt mothers, spear wives, and one-eyed raiders nursing frostbitten grudges. They watched the lone rider, gray-cloaked, hood-drawn, with wary silence. Ned dismounted a shaggy Garen he'd bartered for with promises of southern steel. He strode toward a smoky long hall, ice strapped across his broad back. Inside, a knot of spearwives ringed a fire pit. At their center crouched Tormund Giantsbane, beard iced with ale, regaling them with a tale of bedding a she-bear. When Ned's shadow fell across the flames, conversation stalled. Tormund squinted, then froze. 7 hells. Crowlover Snow's pa looks hale for a headless corpse. I was never fond of courts, Ned rumbled. Thought I'd try life beyond the wall. Laughter cracked among the wildlings, brittle from disbelief. Yet Tormund's grin sharpened into respect. If you seek your cub, he marched south with the bastard King Stannis. Word is the red which burned half his honor on a stake. Grief tugged, but Ned's jaw steadied. My road lies south. I would ask passage. Tormund rose, towering. Passage costs tails or blood. I'll take a tail, Stark. Ned met the wildling's daring smile. Very well. He unslung ice, laid the great sword across his knees, and spoke of kings and betrayals, of how a just man lost his head to a whelp in silk. He spoke modestly, sparing himself glory, yet the firelight carved gravitas into each word. By the tale's end, even hardened raiders sat spellbound. Tormund slapped a mead horn into Ned's hand. Drink, then ride. The gate south yawns like an old whore. She won't mind another customer. He paused, softer. Your son fights ghosts on the wall. See to him soon. I will. Ned clasped the wildling's forearm. Bonds forged in shared disdain for Lannister treachery needed no parchment. Across the wall, the giftlands lay in white slumber. Ned rode hard, his cloak snapping like a banner. He skirted forlorn castles where black brothers once kept watch. The sky bruised purple when he passed Queen's Crown and glimpsed Gilly's lantern flicker in Craster's daughter's hand. Mercy tugged, but time fled. On the fifth night, the King's Road unfolded, a ribbon of stone leading to Winterfell's broken towers. Smoke stained the horizon. Bolton banners flapped atop ramparts blackened by fire. The news struck like a mace. Ramsay Snow squatted in Ned's ancestral seat. He tethered his mount in a copse, heart thrumming. Moonlight silvered the godswood pond within the broken walls, where once he knelt beside Catelyn under pale blossoms. He would not let a bastard's cruelty soil those memories. Ned crept along crumbled outer walls until he beheld a scene of drunken revel beneath the great hall's shattered roof. Flayed-man banners dangled above rowdy Bolton men swilling wine from winter cellars. At their head lounged Ramsay, wolf-pelt cloak draped across shoulders like a conquest. Ned's fury smoldered, but war tempered him. He waited until moon slid behind cloud, then moved. Guards dozed at the postern. Ice bit through chain and bone before they could gasp. He slipped inside, a ghost among strangers. Smoky torchlight revealed corridors still bearing Stark heraldry charred yet defiant. In the kennel yard, starved hounds whined at his scent, but he whispered their names. Heron, Shaggy, Greydog. Remembering each pup he'd once watched born, recognition dulled their hunger. They slunk low, growls replaced by whimpers. He severed their chains. Hunt, he murmured, and they vanished into shadow. A scream erupted in the hall as jaws found Bolton throats. Amid chaos, Ned strode through the door, cloak billowing. Men lurched up, some half-armored, others clutching dice. Ramsay froze mid-swig, disbelief turning to cruel delight. Well now, he purred, rising. Winterfell is haunted by more than burning boys. He drew a short sword of fine make. Come, Spectre, let us carve you open and see what ghosts eat. Ned advanced. Stark men once served honor. You butchered them like cattle. Ramsay laughed. Honor tastes of ash. Fear, though, fear is meat. Their blades met in a clash that silenced the hall. Ice's dark edge sheared Ramsay's steel like bread. Panic flickered across the bastard's eyes. Ned ducked a frantic slash, drove a mailed fist into Ramsay's jaw. Bone cracked, blood sprayed. The hounds bounded back, muzzles wet, rings of light in their wild eyes. Ramsay stumbled, throat exposed. Mercy, he rasped. Mercy. Ned remembered Theon's trembling plea the day he faced the block for treason. He had offered the boy a swift death then. Ramsay Snow deserved less, yet duty weighed heavier than vengeance. Mercy belongs to the realm you've scourged. He raised ice and brought it down swift and true. Ramsay's head toppled, rolling until it lodged against a fallen oak beam, eyes still wide with unspent cruelty. Bolton men threw down blades. Some begged fealty, others fled into snow. Ned spared those who yielded, commanding them to gather the dead for burial flames. Then he strode to the godswood. Beneath the old heart tree, he plunged ice into frozen earth. "I am Ned Stark," he whispered, voice cracking. "I have come home." Wind shuddered through red leaves like applause of silent ancestors. Word of a dead lord's return traveled swifter than ravens. Within a fortnight, bannermen rode to Winterfell, Cerwyn, Manderley, Hornwood, each with tales of Lannister outrages. Grain seized for King Tommen's levy, daughters taken as hostages, taxes doubled to fund golden armor. They found Ned seated beneath the broken weirwood roof, mending mail as though he'd never been parted from them. Ser Roderick Castle's daughter, young Alice, stared at his scarred neck yet bent knee. "My lord, the realm believes you dead. How shall we prove otherwise?" "By deeds," Ned replied, "not proclamations." He called maesters to scribe letters bearing his sigil and a pressed sliver of ironwood, tokens known only to true Northmen. "Dispatch these to the Vale, to Riverrun, to the Wall. Let truth sink root." Yet beyond the neck, Cersei Lannister sharpened claws. Her spies spoke of a wolf risen. In the red keep's shadows, Grand Maester Pycelle shivered beneath lion eyes as she paced. "Dead men do not ride," she hissed. "Dark magic," Pycelle wheezed. "The North consorts with wildling sorcerers. Best to send the king's peacekeepers." Cersei's smile was thin. "I will send peace clad in steel." She summoned Ser Gregor Clegane and gifted him a writ: "March north, crush rebels, deliver Ned Stark's head again." In the throne room, Tommen fidgeted, but Mace Tyrell soothed him with sweet cakes. War brewed like storm clouds none dared name. In secret, the small council fretted over coffers bled dry by justs and debts. The Iron Bank murmured of overdue loans. Lord Baelish, fingers steepled, saw opportunity in chaos. If House Lannister faltered, new coin would be minted in the rubble. Yet Ned did not wait to be besieged. He rode from Winterfell with 2,000 loyal spears, banners snapping. Gray direwolf on white. By his side strode Wyman Manderley, belly ample but eyes bright with cunning. Lady Meage Mormont, clad in bear pelts, and Davos Seaworth, newly arrived with news of Stannis' defeat at Winterfell's ruins, news now rewritten by Ned's resurrection. They trudged south through the neck, reeds whispering as crannogmen emerged to pledge fealty. Howland Reed, gaunt and reed-pale, embraced Ned beneath swaying willow. "I swore to guard your secrets," he murmured, "but the realm now needs truths." He pressed parchment into Ned's hand, proof of Joffrey's parentage, sealed and sure. Beyond the twins, the trident shimmered where House Frye still feasted on red wedding memories. Roose Bolton's death left them exposed. Ned camped upon the river's west bank, horns echoing through night mists. He sent envoys bearing a choice: open gates and stand trial for treachery, or face northern justice. Lord Walder, warts quivering, scoffed. "He was beheaded. I saw the crow's head." Yet dread gnawed. When dawn broke, gray-cloaked spearmen waded through waist-deep river, hollowed tree trunks strapped as shields. Arrows flickered, pinging off makeshift bark. The Freys howled, poured boiling pitch, but the crannogmen slipped beneath water like eels. Gates groaned open from within, betrayed by servants whose kin lay dead in Robb Stark's halls. Ned crossed the twins upon planks laid across Frye corpses. In the great hall, he found old Lord Walder beneath his weeping granddaughters, the twins' walls draped in funereal black. Ned spared those who surrendered but demanded penance. 10 years' harvest tithe to widows of the north, and Lord Walder confined to a sept cell to pray for the souls he'd shorn. Word spread faster than plague. Ned Stark, risen, took back the twins without burning them. Common folk whispered of a just ghost. But in King's Landing, bells tolled for House Frey's fall. Cersei raged, slapping Pycelle's scrolls aside. "Send the mountain and the lion banner. The realm must see the price of revenants." Ser Gregor rode with 500 heavy lancers, their armor polished like pride. They thundered along the King's Road, villages scattering. Smoke rose behind them, proof of Lannister peace. Yet near Acorn Hall they met a silent forest, trees hung with entrails of deer, signs of old rituals. Just past dusk, the mountain's column reached a clearing carpeted in mist. The first rank slowed, horses snorting. From the tree line emerged shapes in bone-white masks, taller than men, eyes blazing blue. Panic ripped through ranks, swords flashed. But when steel met flesh, masks shattered into brittle wood, illusion. Real Northmen lunged from flanks, axes hewing joints between plate. Crannig arrows whistled from fog. Each found visor slit. Ned rode at their head, ice raised. He spied Gregor's hulking form like a tower of black iron. The mountain bellowed, mowing riders. Ned spurred forward. Shock reverberated up his arm as ice met Clegane's greatsword. Sparks burst. Gregor laughed, a wet gargle inside helm. "I crushed your skull once, Stark. Try," Ned growled. He ducked a sweep, rolled from saddle, came up inside Gregor's reach. Valyrian edge bit armpit joint. Plate buckled. Blood spurted.
Gregor roared, backhanded ned aside. Ribs cracked.
Pain flared, but death had taught him to shrug agony. He pivoted, slicing hamstring. The giant fell to one knee. With a final cry to old gods, Ned whirled ice in a full arc, cleaving helm and head clean. Silence fell like snow upon the glade. Lannister banners sagged. Survivors flung spears away, kneeling. Ned stood over Gregor's corpse, breathing ragged but alive. He ordered a pyre lit. No man deserves to rise again worse than before. Meanwhile, at Riverrun, Edmure Tully sat prisoner within his own halls, forced by Lannister siege to yield. But Jaime Lannister, Golden Lion grown pensive after the stump of his sword hand stripped him of arrogance, lingered in the castle yard forging alliances of regret. When ravens delivered news, Eddard Stark alive, Gregor slain, Jaime's green eyes narrowed. War had forged him anew. Could he face judgment for sins once laughed at? The Kingslayer sought his sister that night in her solar. Cersei lounged upon cushion, wine spilling ruby across her silk, hair gleaming like spun sun. Jaime knelt. The realm fractures. Release Edmure, join him with the North. Stand down or you will drag our house into fire. Cersei's stare turned flint. Our house is fire. It burns those too weak to seize the throne. She struck him across the face. You would betray me for a dead wolf? Jaime rose slowly, hand on dagger hilt, then let it fall. For our children's future. For the realm we claim to serve. He turned away. Behind him, Cersei's breath hissed like a serpent. That eve, Jaime slipped from Riverrun with a handful of loyal men and rode toward the Trident to parley with the resurrected Stark. South of Harrenhal, winter storms brewed. Snow fell upon the blackened spires where once dragons scorched stone. Ned's host, swollen by riverlords eager to avenge the Red Wedding, encamped beneath ruined towers. Fires dotted the plain like fallen stars. Davos Seaworth approached Ned's tent bearing letters from the wall. Jon Snow elected Lord Commander, wildlings settled south, and rumors of White Walkers stirred. Dark wings, dark words, Davos muttered. Yet the realm looks only south, Ned answered. He wrote a reply urging Jon to fortify, promising aid once the lion's fangs were pulled. 2 days later, horns shouted at dusk. Riders bearing a white flag neared camp. Jaime Lannister dismounted, cloak sodden. Ned emerged armored in greaves etched with direwolves. They faced each other between fires, snow swirling. Memories flooded. Ned's disgust at seeing the Kingslayer upon the Iron Throne. Jaime's smirk as he cleaned sword of Aerys' gore. Now guilt haunted Lannister eyes. I rode to offer terms, Jaime said quietly. Cersei clutches power, but the capital will fall to famine before winter's end. End this without fire and children's screams. Ned regarded him. Why come yourself? I owe a debt to honor long unpaid. Jaime lifted his stump. I have little left to bargain with but truth. He produced a parchment bearing Tommen's fragile hand. The boy will abdicate if his mother is spared. He fears her more than any usurper. Ned's heart clenched. The Iron Throne cannot pass by whim. Shattered realms must be mended, not bartered. Then claim the regency. Rule until the Dragon Queen arrives. For all I care." Jaime's laugh was bleak. "Better you than snarling lions." Ned studied him. "You murdered the king you swore to protect. I saved 500,000 souls from wildfire." Pain flickered. "Judge me for every blow since. I will not beg. But believe this. King's Landing stands upon powder kegs Cersei lights with each breath." In the hush that followed, wind carried distant roar of river ice breaking. Ned extended a hand. Jaime stared, then clasped it. Dire wolf and lion sealed an accord born of guilt. Under a pale sun, Ned's host marched toward the capital. Peasants lined roads, hollow-cheeked yet hopeful as rumors of the just wolf spread. At Maidenpool, Lord Tarly barred gates under banner of the Reach. Ned summoned him to parley. Randall Tarly, stern as old oak, demanded proof of royal writ. Ned produced none, only the severed helm of Ser Gregor. Tarly stiffened. "You slew the mountain?" "Justice did." Ned met his gaze. "Stand aside, or justice comes for those who shield Lannister tyranny." Tarly weighed pride against pragmatism. He opened gates rather than bleed men on snow. More knights deserted Queen Regent's cause. The lion roared alone now. Within the Red Keep, Cersei drained goblets as courtiers whispered desertion. Qyburn's pale hands delivered wildfire casks below the sept, a last defense. She ordered barrels stacked beneath the city's granaries. "If I cannot rule," she murmured, "I will not sit in ashes alone." Ser Loras Tyrell lay feverish, wounds festering from Dragonstone's siege. Marjorie paced, heart-sick. She dispatched Lady Olenna south with coin to treat with Ned. The Queen of Thorns traveled faster than gossip, meeting the northern host near Rosby. There, amid skeletal orchards, she traded secret routes into the city in exchange for sparing Tyrell interests. Night fell. Ned convened war council, Manderley, Davos, Reed, Olenna. Plans unfurled like raven's wings. The assault began at dawn's first crimson. River lords in fishing skiffs rode up the Blackwater, unseen under morning mist, scaling wharfs while Manderley warships feigned blockade beyond. Crannig outriders seeped through sewers left unguarded by complacent gold cloaks. Above, Northman archers atop surrounding hills sent flaming arrows into Lannister siege engines, drawing defenders outward. Ned rode with the main thrust across the King's Gate, where Jaime's men, disguised, opened portcullis. The charge echoed thunder. Bells tolled as if foretelling doom. Inside, small folk fled, children clutched against hip. Ned barked orders forbidding looting. Any man who disobeyed would face the sword. They advanced through Flea Bottom, stepping over corpses of famine already claimed. At the steps of Baelor's September, gold cloaks rallied under Ser Osmond Kettleblack, but northern shields locked. Ice swept like northern gale. Osmond's spear shattered, breastplate split. He fell gasping prayers to coins he once pocketed. Meanwhile, in the Red Keep's labyrinth, Qyburn escorted Cersei toward hidden passages. She clutched a flask of wildfire, green glow seeping through fingers. "They will not take my crown," she hissed. Footsteps echoed. Jaime emerged from shadow, sword drawn. "It ends, sister." Instant fury contorted her face. "Traitor, you would join them? For our children." His voice broke. "For Tommen's soul." She raised the flask. "I birthed kings. I will birth ruin." Jaime lunged, grappling her wrist. Green liquid sloshed, hissing upon stone. He wrenched flask free, flung it through window into moat below where it exploded in emerald column. Guards rushed. Cersei screamed, struck Jaime's cheek with nails drawing blood. Gold cloaks seized her at his command. Tears blurred his vision as they dragged the woman he loved and despised in equal measure. Ned found Jaime kneeling in the corridor, head bowed. He placed a gauntlet upon his shoulder. "The realm owes you." Jaime shook, unable to speak. The iron throne chamber smelled of candle smoke and dust. Ned strode toward it, banners of stag, wolf, trout, and rose fluttering as assembled lords watched. No Lannister sigil flew, save crumpled beneath the maester's boot. Tommen, pale and trembling, sat upon the monstrous seat, crown too heavy. Ned knelt. "Your Grace," he said softly, "will you relinquish what was forged in lies?" Tears welled in the boy's eyes. "I want Mother," his whisper echoed endless stone. "She will face trial," Ned said, voice gentle yet firm, "but you may choose a path free of blood." He offered parchment, abdication, realm to be stewarded by a council of regents until a great council chose rightful monarch. Tiny fingers clutched quill. Tommen signed, ink blotting final childish flourish. A hush swept hall broken only by the flutter of raven wings roosting in rafters. Ned turned. "Until a new king is chosen, we restore the rule of law. Grain will be distributed, taxes eased, the Night's Watch supplied. The small council will include lords of every region, and the High Septon to weigh mercy against justice." Lords bent knee, some grudging, most relieved. The War of 5 Kings had ended not with wildfire but with oath. Yet outside the walls, distant thunder boomed, dragons stirring across the narrow sea, white walkers stalking the long night. Ned Stark's burdens had only begun. That evening, as snowflakes drifted over the broken city, Ned walked the battlements overlooking Blackwater Bay. Dawn's pale ribbon hinted at storms yet to come. Jaime joined him, stump wrapped in linen, eyes hollow. "Winter will swallow us all," the Kingslayer murmured. "Then we hold torches for as long as we may," Ned replied. He gazed northward, past river and hill and haunted forest, toward a wall he had built his life upon, toward children scattered like constellations across night sky. He had returned from death, dismantled the lion's den, but the greatest war, one beyond thrones and crowns, still loomed. And so the wolf watched dawn bleed into day, patient, relentless, alive. The dawn after King's Landing's quiet surrender unfurled like a blood-pink banner across the city's broken roofs, and the first day of Lord Eddard Stark's regency began in the stillness that follows a typhoon. Ned left the ramparts and descended the Tower of the Hand's narrow stairs, boots clicking on frost-slick stone, carrying the memories of every oath he had ever spoken. In the gallery outside the council chamber, servants bowed low, more wary of him than of ghost stories now. They smelled iron about him. Iron of swords, iron of duty, iron of bone beneath graveyard skin. Inside, the small council assembled. Grand Maester Pycelle hunched like a molting vulture over his scrolls. Lady Olenna Tyrell in velvet so dark it devoured torchlight. Ser Davos Seaworth freshly scrubbed, fingers of ashwood sailing the edge of the tabletop, and Howland Reed standing in reed-colored wool with the quiet of bogs in his eyes. Wyman Manderley's chair creaked beneath the free city girth he carried proudly, while a gaunt, sun-scarred Brienne of Tarth guarded the door in place of the Kingsguard dissolved at midnight. Ned took the high seat, but slow. "First bread before quarrel," he murmured. A Winterfell saying, and waved in kitchens clattering with trencher loaves and bowls of smoked river eel for those who had passed the night marching, cataloging thieves, quenching stray fires. In the hush of meal, he read reports. Flea Bottom's bakeries empty of flour. Leal merchants robbed by departing gold cloaks. Wells poisoned with dust from charred corpses. The realm, thought Ned, was not a tapestry to mend with golden thread. It was sinew and marrow, and rot had set in. Pycelle cleared his throat and loosed a cough phlegmy as a swamp toad. His Grace, the abdicated boy, requests his tomcat, Ser Pounce, be returned forthwith. A hush, then a thin smile curved Davos's weather-rough mouth. "See to the cat, and to the hungry." He met Ned's gaze. "Better we fulfill small mercies while we scheme at large." Lady Olenna dabbed her lips with lavender-scented cloth. "Small mercies and large loaves. I can spare grain from the mander for a moon's turn if my darling Marjorie's safety is assured." "How fares the Queen?" Ned asked. "Queen no longer," Olenna corrected, but the sharpness faded from her tongue. "A prisoner of her own good sense. She tends the poor in the sept instead of rattling chains in cells. Leave her there. She'll shame half your lords into charity." Ned turned pages of fresh ink. Accounting ledgers bled red. a city groaning beneath 7 years of war. We reduce taxes on bread, levy coin upon vaults that bled the realm. His voice carried iron. House Lannister shall pay reparations for every bushel taken at sword point. Pycelle's jowls quivered. The crown's debt to Casterly Rock is vast. Then consider it paid in blood already spilled. Ned signed the order. Wax hissed beneath the Stark wolf. When council dismissed, Howland Reed lingered. He unrolled a strip of doeskin, revealing shards of dragon glass gleamed from caves beneath the fist. "Children of the forest promised more," he murmured. "But winter runs swifter than ravens. Your son needs arms of truth." Ned's eyes traced the black glass edges. "Jon holds the wall by courage alone. Send every shard north." On impulse, he closed Howland's fingers around the remainder. "And go with them." Loyalty shone in the Crannogman's gaze like a lantern in fog. "I will ride at dusk, old friend. Look to the south. Another dragon stirs." He meant Daenerys, the girl queen with silver hair Ned had once counseled Robert to kill. Leaf's words echoed. "Dismantle the lion. Leave the realm standing. If fire came across the narrow sea, the realm would need pillars of stone." That night Ned dreamed of words in flame, twisting into symbols older than his house. He woke to bells pealing across the capital. Not alarm, but triumph. On the harbor, a tall caravel of Pentoshi make had set anchor, sails painted with the crescent moon sigil of the Sea Lord of Bravos. From it descended 3 straight-backed figures robed in gray and purple. They carried a chest bound in bronze and a scroll sealed with iron coin. The Iron Bank had come calling. Ned received them in the throne room, the iron throne draped in plain wool, its jagged black spines dulled with sackcloth to remind every eye that crowns cut flesh. Tycho Nestoris, gaunt as parchment, bowed at the knee, then rose smoother than silk. "Lord Regent, we come not to beg, but to make just reckoning." The bronze-bound chest thudded open to reveal silver stags minted in King Aegon V's reign. "The crown owes you coin," Ned said, "and houses Lannister, Tyrell, and Frey owe you blood," Tycho answered. "The Iron Bank prefers lives kept breathing. We offer a loan at lenient terms, food for your hungry, seed for your fields, ships to carry grain north. If you pledge that House Stark shall honor obligations in due course." Pycelle's quill squeaked. Ned surveyed the chest. "Loans can be fetters. The North does not forget the price of leash. Nor does the bank," Tycho allowed. "But fetters unlock doors as well as bind hands, if the key is wielded wisely." Ned considered. He had traded vengeance for burden. Burden required ballast. "Half the chest," he agreed, secured by the winter stores of White Harbor and the promise of next summer's harvest. "No child will starve for want of my pride." Tycho inclined his head. "A pact forged in good faith satisfies both gods and men." Outside, the day warmed, a mocking promise of spring. Ned walked the streets in plain cloak, Brienne pacing beside him, her broad shadow swallowing his slight one. They passed a butcher's shop where pig bones protruded beneath tattered cloth. Ned commandeered the last salt pork to an orphanage uphill. They reached the September of Baelor, where crowds queued for crusts ladled by Marjorie. She looked up as Ned approached, flour dusting her cheeks like early snow. "My lord," she greeted with a curtsy. "You bring hope to a city drunk on dust." "Hope is brittle," Ned said. "We must temper it with truth." He glanced at the great steps where his blood had stained stone. "This place once hosted my execution. See that it now hosts only mercy." Marjorie's smile was wan but resolute. "I will plant gardens where gallows stood." Through the afternoon Ned inspected granaries, commanded masons to shore crumbling walls, and ordered cesspits cleared, work of hands, not heroes, yet more vital than swordplay. Everywhere he walked, whispers trailed him. The Wolf King, the just ghost, lord of second chances. By dusk he stood in the dragon pit's ruin, wind rattling bronze doors, and stared at the sky where dragons once wheeled. How many more legends would bleed into stone before winter's end? That question echoed when a raven from Old Town arrived upon midnight oils. Samwell Tarly's script stammered across parchment. White ravens departed. The citadel declared winter, true winter, not the false horns blown previous years. Snow already crept past the neck. By next moon it would blanket the riverlands. Ned convened lords at dawn beneath the red keep's godswood. New leaves budding scarlet against looming cold. The realm faces two storms. He spoke to the semicircle of banners. Tyrell Rose, Tarth Lily, Martell Sunspear borne by a cautious Prince Tristane newly arrived, Riverland's Trouts, and the nascent direwolf of his son Bran carved onto a green field of weirwood leaf carried by Mira Reed in her brother's stead. Winter from the north and dragons from the east. Either may save or swallow us. Ser Davos stroked his gray beard. Best greet one with open gates before the other climbs over walls. Daenerys Targaryen marches through Slaver's Bay, Brienne reported. She broke Yunkai again and swells with freedmen. 3 dragons fly above her. Wyman Manderly belched uneasily. Great beasts scorch houses same as castles. The North remembers. The North remembers Lannister knives too, grumbled Meage Mormont, her fur cloak shaggy as a bear's. A Targaryen once forged realm from ruin. Perhaps the girl can again. Ned let silence weigh each man's heart. My duty is the realm's safety. If Daenerys means peace, we must court it. I will send an embassy, but I cannot leave King's Landing while trial looms. The trial, that shadow on every corridor. Cersei awaited judgment in the black cells, frothing rage and prayer in equal measure. Half the city wanted her head. The other half feared her specter. High Septon Barrack of Blackhaven had agreed to oversee proceedings, his single eye a pale candle of piety. 3 nights before trial, Ned sat alone in the solar once belonging to Jon Arryn. Cold firelight glinted off a crystal chessboard abandoned by Joffrey. He moved a black knight idly, remembering Bran's laughter at Winterfell's own set. A knock. Jaime entered, cloak changed to plain gray, stump-bound in fresh linen. She will try wildfire again, Jaime said without preamble. Cells are scoured hourly, Ned replied. Jaime's green gaze faltered. My sister is wildfire. Ned gestured to a chair. Jaime declined and instead crossed to the window, staring toward the sept spire pricking a silver moon. I thought myself monster once, so I wore the mask. She never knew the mask came off. Ned rose, scanning Jaime's posture. The slump of weightless sword hand, the twitch at his jaw each time he inhaled. Stand witness at her trial, Ned offered. Tell your truths. Truth cost me honor before. It may cost me blood now. Jaime's breath fogged window glass. Then count it penance. Jaime exhaled slow. Very well. But know this, our father's gold yet lines pockets across the realm. For every friend we make, a lion buys 2 daggers in shadow. Ned nodded. Then let us light more torches. On the dawn of Cersei's trial, snow fluttered like pale moths across the marble courtyard outside Baelor's September High Septon Barrack stood in plain wool, his eye patch stark, holding aloft a 7-pointed crystal that caught newborn sun. Lords and small folk packed steps and streets, a hush spreading that tasted of frost. Cersei emerged between pairs of unsworn knights in silent mail. She wore black velvet studded with onyx lions, hair loosened so gold spilled like a sinned-upon halo. Chain shackles clinked, but her chin remained high, eyes shards of green glass. On a dais framed by torches, Ned waited, ice planted upright. Jaime stood apart, flanked by Brienne. Tension arced between him and his sister like drawn steel. The Septon invoked 7 faces. Breath plumed around each syllable. Cersei was accused of treason, regicide by negligence, murder of Robert's bastards, torturing of small folk, conspiring with foreign armies, and crimes unnumbered of oath and flesh. She smiled at every charge. When witnesses spoke, Lancel confessing to incest, Pycelle's trembling lip painting nights of poison, Qyburn's ledger of vanished urchins. Cersei rolled her eyes. Then Jaime stepped forward. I, Ser Jaime of House Lannister, once of the Kingsguard, declare upon honor and the memory of my dead children, that my sister the queen confessed desire to ignite wildfire caches beneath this city should defeat approach. Cersei laughed, a rich crimson sound. Desire? I ordered it, fool. Shock rippled. Jaime's shoulders sagged, but resolve held. She consigned innocence to ash. I opposed her. Opposed? Cersei sneered. You wept like a babe when I charted burn lines. Spare me this play. The crowd roared. Torches licked wind. High Septon raised his crystal. Cersei Lannister, what defense remain? She spat. I demand trial by combat. Gasped.
Ned stiffened.
The faith militant forbade such after Tommen's edict, but law twisted under weight of spectacle. Beric nodded grimly. Who fights for you? Cersei's smile spread slow. No one needs fight when no one can win. From her cloak she produced a tiny phial wildfire, glass no larger than a sparrow's egg. Guards lunged, but she hurled it downward. Green flame erupted across the platform, engulfing her gown, licking shackles. The crowd shrieked, surging back. Ned vaulted over railing, cloak aflame at him. He tackled Cersei, rolling across stone. Wildfire clung hungry, but Brienne slammed her cloak upon sparks while Davos doused with buckets snatched from torch sconce. Cersei howled, skin blistering on arms, yet alive. Ned's hands burned. He smelled his own flesh singe, but pain meant little after death. The fire faded into smoking sodden cloth. Beric, face soot-streaked, declared no god would champion such soul. Sentence: life imprisonment within Silent Sisters Convent. Tongue removed to end poison of her words. The crowd howled approval and horror in equal measure. As healers bore Cersei away, eyes wide but voice forever muted, Ned stood upon the pyre-scarred platform. Snow kissed his singed fingers. He flexed them slowly. Jaime knelt where wildfire had flared, tears carving ash down his cheeks. Ned offered a hand. Jaime clasped it. In that grip was not forgiveness, but shared burden. The trial's embers still smoldered when ravens arrived. One from Jon Snow bearing the direwolf seal, one from Queen Daenerys written on pale parchment smelling of smoke and salt. Jon's letter spoke of wights in their thousands breaching abandoned castles east of Icemark, of giants in chains of ice. Daenerys's message, penned in a firm, looping Valyrian hand, requested parley on Dragonstone in 1 fortnight. She would not bend knee to usurpers, but she would speak of winter and war. Ned summoned council that eve. Candles flickered in gusts from open shutters. He refused to bar winter's breath. It kept men honest. The wall is pierced, Ned announced. Jon calls for dragonglass and men. The queen across the sea offers fire. We cannot face both storms apart. Davos traced the map spread on table. Sail to Dragonstone with reed boats of obsidian. Bargain for alliance. Send who? Olenna asked. Your regency wobbles on newborn legs. I will go, Ned said. Gasped. Pycelle coughed. But Ned continued, voice iron. King's Landing kneels not to my crown but to my presence. I must show trust. Leave city to lords chosen by worth, not blood. Wyman Manderly handles coin. Davos commands fleet. Brienne leads guards. Howland rides north with Shard. Jaime will serve as justiciar. Jaime startled. You risk much granting a Lannister such post. The realm must learn lions can guard walls as well as tear them, Ned replied. So it was writ. Preparations consumed 4 restless days. Before he sailed, Ned walked alone to the dungeon of the Red Keep, silent, windowless. Sister Mercy, robes gray as soot, guided him by lantern to a door barred with iron. Inside sat a man on straw pallet, Tyrion Lannister, face gaunt behind beard, eyes glinting predator sharpness.
Tyrion, Ned greeted.
Lord Stark, suppose death sharpened your sense of irony. Tyrion rattled chains. I remain guest of your hospitality. You remain guest of justice. Yet justice must serve wisdom. Ned produced a key. You will sail with me to Dragonstone. The queen you once served cherishes your counsel. She may listen to your words if not mine. Tyrion's brows rose. Queen Daenerys? I rather fancy beaches to dungeons. But why trust the imp? Because you alone among Lannisters saw beyond golden crowns to beating hearts.
Ned unlocked many kills.
Because a realm of cripples, bastards, and broken things requires champions as cracked as its stones. Tyrion rubbed raw wrists. I am cracked indeed. Then mend with me. At dawn, gulls wheeled above Blackwater Bay. The flagship Wolf's Breath hoisted sails of gray linen emblazoned with direwolf. Ned stood at prow beside Tyrion, feel of sea spray a benediction. Behind them followed a flotilla of grain ships, their holds stuffed with dragonglass from Dragonstone's old mines he had contracted Tycho to purchase overnight. Coin buys haste where honor must barter time. As the city shrank, Ned glimpsed the September of Baelor standing serene despite scars. Somewhere within, Tommen played with Ser Pounce under watchful eyes of Septas. Jaime drafted charters Ubblies. Hing child brothels. Marjorie sowed sweet corn along Northern Road. Brienne drilled new gold cloaks unpaid by Lannister coffers. Fragile beginnings, but beginnings all the same. They cleared the bay mouth as morning fog lifted, revealing sails upon horizon. 3 black galleys with red harpy prow cutting water like crimson daggers. Tyrion shaded eyes. Her dragons approach. Indeed, leathery wings darkened clouds. Drogon, Viserion, regal, crescents against pale sky. The fleet trembled. Sailors whispered prayers. Ned felt awe, not fear. Fire to fight ice, ice to temper fire. Balance. A horn sounded from the leading harpy galley. 2 low notes followed by high. A greeting, not attack. Ned ordered reply. The mournful wolf horn once blown from Winterfell's walls. Dragons wheeled overhead, scorching nothing, observing. As Wolf's Breath and Harpy's roar drew abreast near the smoking peaks of Dragonstone, Ned beheld Daenerys Targaryen upon forecastle deck. Hair silver-white, cloak of black and red rippling, eyes as deep and distant as starlit seas. Beside her stood Missandei, Grey Worm, and a shadow taller than all, the exile knight Jorah Mormont, face lined like weathered bark. Ned signaled for Plank to bridge gap of churning foam. He stepped across first. Salt wind pressed cloak to battered plate. Hair whipped gray strands across scarred neck. Daenerys watched with expression unreadable. He bowed. Your Grace, I am Eddard of House Stark, Lord Regent of the 7 Kingdoms, servant of the realm. Daenerys's voice rang like clear bell yet carried furnace heat. I heard Eddard Stark died in chains. I did, Ned answered. I rose again to break them. A silence as vast as the bay stretched. Drogon's shadow slid across both decks, wings creaking. Then Daenerys inclined her head the slightest tilt. Come then, wolf returned from death. Let us speak of seasons. They retreated to Dragonstone's chart room, walls lined with carved obsidian flight paths of dragons long vanished. Flames from oil lamps flickered green against glassy stone. Tyrion poured arbor gold with shackled humility turned to courtly flourish. Varys emerged from gloom like silk moth and smiled, hairless scalp reflecting faint fire. He too had found sanctuary among dragons when King's Landing burned his spies. Words unfurled slow as winter nights. Ned laid bare the wall's fracture, the army of dead. He spoke of Cersei's trial, of Tommen's abdication, fates of lords and small folk. He offered hostages as pledge, his own daughter Sansa, safe now in Riverrun. Coin from Iron Bank, half the crown's fleet. He did not beg. He bargained like a blacksmith forging blades. Heat truth, strike honesty, quench in shared fear. Daenerys listened, fingers tracing map relief of Westeros. I was born to take the Iron Throne, she said finally, but I will not inherit a coffin. To save the living is worth more than sitting a chair of swords. Ned nodded. Sit it after. Rule over those you saved, not bones. Tyrion chuckled soft. A throne of bones is poor seat indeed. Grey Worm's hand rested upon sword hilt. What of the slavers' fleets still hunting our wake? Ned turned to Davos. We break them with combined might. If they bend, they may trade grain north. If not, Dragonfire, Daenerys finished. They sealed alliance that night upon windswept cliff where waves hammered basalt like giants' drums. Jon Snow's raven fluttered to perch upon Ned's wrist as stars burned, white illuminous. Its caw blended with roar of distant tide. Daenerys touched the bird's ragged feathers. Your son is the realm's shield. I will fly dragons north when winds permit. Ned met her gaze, violet eyes flecked with embers of 1,000 pyres. He will meet you as brother in arms. Wind whipped cloaks together, black and gray and red melding. In the days that followed, fleets drilled off Dragonstone. Unsullied sparred Blackwater veterans. Smiths forged arrowheads of dragonglass by torchlight. Ravens winged to all corners carrying news of unlikely union. Among recipients Bran Stark, far beyond the wall's icy ruins, opened white eyes within a weirwood cave and felt bonds tighten across realms like sinews drawing a titan upright. And far north in blizzarding night, the Night King paused before a wall now cracked and marred, sensing distant rumble of wings, smell of ancient fire mixing with the metallic tang of approaching dawn. In silence he raised a hand. Snow eddied into whirls, shaping ghostly wolf, lion, dragon, then shattered into ice shards that skittered across frost-hardened stone. In King's Landing, Jaime strode through corridors once haunted by echoes of clinking goblets and cruel laughter. He paused at a window overlooking the inner courtyard where orphans played, swinging wooden swords. One boy wore a helm too large. Another pretended to be a dragon. Jaime thought of his own children, buried beneath rubble of ambition. He inhaled, tasted winter on coming wind, and prayed for redemption he no longer dared voice. On the shivering sea's edge, Yara Greyjoy mustered longships. In Sunspear, the sand snakes debated vengeance versus survival. At Old Town, the Citadel's white ravens circled spine-gray towers, their hoarse cries foretelling nights not soon ending. Yet in every tavern, at every hearth, from Skagos to the Summer Isles, tales spread of the wolf returned from death, the lion tamed by guilt, the dragon queen crossing tides, and the army of night marching. Some called it doom, others hope. Most merely listened, clutching children close. In a hidden grove beyond Winterfell's restored walls, Sansa Stark knelt before the heart tree, moonlight drawing silver on her copper hair. Soft footsteps rustled leaves. Arya emerged from shadow, needle at her hip, eyes dark pools reflecting stars. Sansa rose, tears tracing cheeks. They embraced wordless. "The North is calling," Arya whispered. "So is Father," Sansa answered. And somewhere beneath layers of snow, in crypts hewn by hands long turned to dust, the stones of Winterfell trembled in quiet acknowledgement. Not of ghosts, but of a heartbeat returned to flesh, pulsing through marrow of realm like thaw through deep-seated frost. The sea had a way of taking a man's mind and turning it inward, smoothing sharp edges of thought the way waves polish stones. Ned Stark watched gulls spiral off Dragonstone's black cliffs while the wolf's breath rode an easterly wind up the coast. Dawn bled pale saffron through ragged cloud banks, revealing faint silhouettes of other ships in the convoy. Sleek Myrish traders seated with dragonglass, squat Braavosi grain hulks wallowing low. Daenerys's own copper-scaled dramans, their triangular sails catching light like stained glass. Above, the dragons traced lazy spirals, dark against brightening sky, banked on thermals that seemed born of their own furnace hearts. Below deck the hold smelled of pitch, salt, and the subtle, stony tang of obsidian. Crates were stacked 4 high, each labeled with white paint. Shards, barbs, arrowheads. Tyrion paced between rows of boxes, measuring stride by stride. He looked smaller than usual, threadbare black doublet, bare feet for sea grip, but his eyes gleamed with a gambler's anticipation. Ned joined him, stooping beneath a crossbeam. "The Queen's quartermasters swear we carry 30,000 spear points," Tyrion said, rapping knuckles on a crate. "Enough to arm every watchman between Eastwatch and Shadow Tower." "Enough to arm them once," Ned corrected. "Dead men break spears faster than living." "Break them or carry them off," Tyrion agreed, leaning against wood. "Either way, better obsidian in their ribs than dust in crates." Ned crouched, prying open a lid. Inside lay dagger blades the color of midnight with veins of purple sheen. Each edge looked thin enough to split moonlight. He traced one carefully. It smelled faintly of sulfur, as though it still remembered dragon flame. "I will not rest easy until these lie in Jon's hands," Ned said. Tyrion's smile softened. "You miss him. I grieve the months I lost when my head lay apart from my shoulders," Ned confessed, voice rough. "Fatherhood should not be lived through ravens alone." The dwarf folded arms. "We may yet reclaim ours thought dead. Strange as it sounds, resurrection is catching." Ned closed the lid. "Jon must hold the wall until we arrive with more than crates and promises. The dead gather faster than sails catch wind." "Speaking of sails," Tyrion said, "our latest raven places Euron Greyjoy near Fair Isle. His black galleys slice more trade arteries than the crown can repair." Ned's jaw tightened. The Iron Fleet reaving coasts in wartime winter was plague upon plague. "We confront living threats after we shore up the wall," he decided. "One war at a time. Wars breed partners." Tyrion winked. "Slay the common fear, and every petty lord who hates his neighbor will kiss your boots in gratitude. The trick is living long enough to stand still for the kissing." A bell clanged above, 2 long peals, 1 short. Change of watch and a signal. Dragon approaching, too low. Ned and Tyrion ascended the ladder and emerged into wind-whipped light. Drogon's shadow swept across the wolf's breath, sent sailors ducking. The beast descended, claws like scythes gripping the foremost mast, wings beating once before folding with sail snapping thunder. His obsidian scales shimmered crimson where dawn touched them. On his neck sat Daenerys, riding tackless, hair streaming silver. She swung down lithely, boots barely tapping yardarm before rope carried her to deck. "He grows restless staying aloft," she told Ned, stroking a scale the size of a shield. Drogon huffed, furnace breath rolling warm across timbers. "The sea gives him little to burn," Ned said dryly. "A mercy for villages along our course." Her glance held unspoken apology and pride in equal measure. "We veer north-northwest at midday, keep distance from the arbor to evade Euron's scouts. Drogon will range ahead. If the Kraken strikes, he'll know." Tyrion tilted his head. "Do all your messages now arrive by roaring reptile?" "Some by dwarf," she countered, lifting an eyebrow. Ned masked a smile but felt warmth stir, an unfamiliar ease despite the stakes. "We still must decide whether to land at White Harbor or Eastwatch," he reminded. "White Harbor offers docks for heavy hulls," Tyrion argued, "but we lose 2 weeks marching the barrels overland." "Eastwatch puts spears directly into Jon's gauntlets," Daenerys said. "Yet the harbor's half ruined and the sea ice closes fast." Ned studied the horizon where water darkened to steel. "Speed outweighs comfort. Ice can be broken. Time cannot. Eastwatch." Daenerys nodded once, decisive. Drogon unleashed a geyser of emberflecks and vaulted skyward, beating air until sails whipped in turbulence. Sailors cheered raggedly. Ned watched black wings diminish among clouds and thought of legends stepping from song into flesh. 10 days brought fog so thick it drowned suns, moons, stars alike. Ships crawled blind. Crows perched on yardarms, mute as watchers at a wake. Each dusk Daenerys lit signal torches for her dragons, fiery orbs that flickered specters across fog banks until one by one silhouettes answered. Rhaegal's green-gold glow, Viserion's pallid shimmer. They circled as shepherd dogs guard sheep until dawn chased mist a few feet higher. On the 8th night cold gnawed even through wool and furs. Ned stood sternwatch when a hand touched his sleeve. Missandei, face half hidden by hood, offered a steaming mug of ginger tea. "You keep vigil too long, Lord Stark. My dreams hold darker sights than the sea," he replied, though he accepted sip. Heat unknotted muscles. She leaned on railing. "The Queen trusts you. She does not trust easily. Trust is seldom wise." Ned's breath clouded, drifted away. "But it is necessary." Missandei's gaze traced slick deck planks. "When I was enslaved, I trusted no one. Freedom taught me trust can build walls higher than chains ever could. Ned considered. And the queen, what walls does she build? Walls of promise. Missandei smiled, small and fierce. Promise that tomorrow need not bleed like yesterday. He reflected on Winterfell's rubble, the North's hunger, and found resonance in her simple creed. When the sea finally vomited them upon the ragged lee of Skago's Isle, horns brayed from Eastwatch's ramparts. Thin, reedy, but alive. Snow blew sideways, each flake a stinging needle. Icicles hung from battlements like stalactites in a white cave. The castle's eastern pier jutted half-splintered into slush. Yet black brothers scrambled along with torches, waving. Ned disembarked first. Boots crunched frozen rime thick as slate. Unsullied companies filed behind, shields strapped over pale arms, neither shiver nor gasp escaping their lips. Davos supervised ropes as dockworkers hauled crate after crate of obsidian. Atop the gatehouse stairs, Jon Snow descended 2 at a time, Lord Commander's cloak swirling black edged in hoarfrost white. His face bore weeks without gentle sleep. Eyes shadow-ringed, beard rhymed, but his gaze held embers. Father, the word cracked. In 3 strides they clasped, metal and fur colliding, the embrace as fierce as the wind. Life's weight shifted. Ned felt ribs protest but held fast. He pulled back, hand on Jon's cheek. The boy I left in Winterfell is a man grown, forged by ice. Then let ice forge the rest of us, Jon said, turning to Daenerys, who approached with Viserion banking overhead. She and Jon studied one other, the Silver Queen in dragon-scaled leather, the Black Wolf cloaked in crow feathers, recognizing burdens mirrored in different armor. Jon inclined his head. Your Grace, Lord Commander. Daenerys's reply carried neither haughtiness nor surrender. Wary diplomacy waited in that thin air, but practicalities pressed harder. Jon gestured toward the courtyard. Inside, out of the wind, they gathered before an ironwood table in Eastwatch's hall. Walls weeping melt rivulets though hearth blazed. Ghost, Jon's albino direwolf, padded in silently, regard shifting from Ned to dragons glimpsed through arrow slits, hackles neither up nor laid flat, cautious curiosity. Drogon roost on a cliff ledge beyond, black wings cloaking half the moon, maps unfurled. Jon pointed to marks inked in oily soot. Scouts report dead hosts massing here, at the gorge, and further west by Icemark. Whites test abandoned gates nightly. We burn them, but more come. Ned traced the line where wall once stood unbreached. How many men garrison now? 2,000 at most. Wildlings among them were stretched. Daenerys listened, palms on table. Dragons can break the dead's ranks long enough to carve a retreat. But we must discover the White Walker's center. Jon tapped one smudge shaped like a fong. Reports of blue-eyed giants there. Could be the commanders. If we kill them, Whites left leaderless may falter. Tyrion cleared throat. Assassin a demon of ice in a blizzard? Simpler to ask the sea to thaw. Bran Stark's raven, perched overhead, croaked once. From corridor doors Mira Reed guided Bran's sled into hall. The boy, now more pale root than flesh, lifted milky gaze, pupils clouded with far visions. I have seen the Night King, he murmured, voice grown older than his bones. He rides a storm of souls toward Last Hearth. 3 days hence, cold deeper than the air descended. Ned stepped forward. How sure? As sure as I am of you, Bran answered serenely. Jon squared shoulders. Then we ride to meet him before he swells his ranks with Umber dead. Daenerys touched map edge. Dragons fly faster than horses. I will strike them mid-march. Dragon fire alone cannot kill a walker, Bran said, but it shatters their armor. Then dragonglass may find heart of ice. Ned weighed the plan. A spear-point thrust of cavalry and unsullied backed by dragons, intercepting an undead legion far from walls where retreat possible. Risk vast, reward greater. He nodded. We meet them on the shivering plain. Lure them onto ground we choose. Tormund Giantsbane burst in, icicles tangled in beard. I smell talk of battle. Good. He clapped Jon's back, then eyed Daenerys approvingly. "If the Dragon Queen fries some dead, I'll carve charred bits for supper." Grey Worm bristled. Tormund winked. Preparations stretched through night. Unsullied distributed dragonglass spear tips to Night's Watchmen. Wildling archers fletched arrows with raven feather. Gendry, hammer-slung, joined with blacksmiths forging blades so fast sparks peppered snow like fireflies. Samwell Tarly pored over dusty tomes, murmuring about binding spells and the true name of steel. Ned visited the rookery at dawn. Snowflakes coated ravens' wings. They shook like old scrolls. He penned 2 letters, one to Sansa at Winterfell, urging evacuation of the south villages, another to Jaime in King's Landing, commanding immediate shipment of grain up the King's Road, even if wagons had to be escorted by Tyrell Rose Knights sworn to neutrality. He sealed letters with direwolf wax and watched birds vanish into gray swirl. Outside walls, soldiers formed columns. Jon mounted a rangy dun horse, Ghost loping beside. At his right rode Daenerys on pale mare, cloak of obsidian scales glittering under chill sun. Drogon soared high, regal and Viserion flanking. Ned swung into saddle of a borrowed bay, ice strapped across its flank. His breath plumed before visor like smoke from forge. The gates creaked open. They rode into a world of white silence where only heartbeats and distant wing beats marked living from dead. Hours stretched like skeins of wool. The shivering plain welcomed them, a vast field of snow-laden tussocks and frozen ponds, ringed by wind-shaped boulders.
Jon signaled halt.
Unsullied fanned out, shields interlocked in crescent. Wildling spearwives crouched behind ridges. Arrows knocked. Grey Worm strode the line, voice low steel. In the stillness Bran's raven croaked thrice. A warning. Far horizon darkened, a bruise seeping across perfect snow. First came the silence, devouring even wind. Then a sound like brittle branches dragged across stone. Thousands of skeletal feet over ice. The dead advanced, ranks uneven yet relentless, spears of hoarfrost jutting from ribs, armor rimed white. Within their midst walked giants, hulking shapes with ice-blue eyes glowing. Above them sailed shredded banners of forgotten houses, cloth stiff with death. Jon raised long claw, its Valyrian edge gleamed pale. Daenerys whispered to Drogon. Dragons banked low, gathering speed, wings punching air. The first gout of flame burst, a river of liquid orange cascading across undead vanguard. Bones exploded into ember ash, yet rose behind pressed on, feet quenching fire as quickly as it birthed. Unsullied spears met whites. Dragonglass pierced ribcages, turning corpses to powder that vanished on wind. But for every fallen, 2 stepped over ashes. Tormund roared, burying axe in skull of white bear, gore of black ichor sprang. Across the field a white walker rode an undead elk, armor sparkling frost diamonds. It lifted spear of ice, aimed at Daenerys where she circled. Ned spurred his bay, barreling across snow. He felt time slow, each breath a roar in ears. He drew ice and swung. Valyrian steel met crystalline spear. Shock shivered up arm. Both weapons held. The walker's face, carved from winter itself, tilted. Its next thrust slid past Ned's pauldron, slicing mail, drawing searing cold into flesh. He ignored pain, pivoted and chopped. Ice sheared through collar of the walker's breastplate. The creature, shattered, shards glinting. Its elk crumbled to dust. Nearby Jon engaged another walker, long claw screeching over ice spear until he found opening, plunged point through throat. Blue eyes burst into frost. But amidst victories Ned sensed movement. Dread focus of host bending toward center where Bran sat upon sled guarded by Mira and small Night's Watch contingent. The Night King had arrived. He strode between his army, towering, cloak of darkness alive with snow swirl. His spear glimmered clear as still water. Ned's stomach clenched at power radiating cold as deepest cavern. Dragons sighted him. Regal dove, flame washing ground. The Night King thrust spear skyward. Tips of ice shards launched heavenward. One struck Regal's chest. The dragon faltered, roared. regained lift, but green flames sputtered crimson smoke. Daenerys screamed command. Drogon banked toward enemy, jaws widening. Yet the Night King merely raised hand. Frost gust erupted. Drogon's flame guttered into steam. Whites surged anew, climbing on each other, forming writhing mound that clawed at the dragon's belly. Scales cracked. Jon spurred forward, but avalanche of dead cut path.
Ned rallid unsulid uedge, Pikes splitting bone.
Grey Worm shouted, "For life!" They drove corridor toward Bran, but Night King advanced faster, blue fire in eyes locked on young Stark. Then Bran's head tilted back, pupils vanished. Wind shifted. Ravens burst from tree line in black tide, swirling into cyclone around Night King, pecking eyes of whites, confusing ranks. Bran's warging wove chaos. Tyrion, half buried behind fallen white, saw opening. He fumbled at belt, produced small crossbow quarrel tipped with dragonglass. "Only fools heroic," he muttered, then loaded, knelt, aimed. The Night King turned, eyes gleaming through raven storm. The bolt flew, whistling, and shattered on invisible mantle of cold. Hope flickered. The Night King lowered arm. Icy aura flared. Ravens froze midair, fell like obsidian rain. Silence crashed. Daenerys, face streaked with soot, landed Drogon between Bran and Night King. She dismounted, unsheathing an arak of dark steel Yora once gifted. "You will not touch him," she promised, voice a tremor. The Night King paused, almost curious. Ned sensed history's hinge teetering. Behind him Jon, bloody snow clinging to beard, staggered finally free of whites. He hefted Longclaw, sprinted. Time fractured. The Night King hurled spear at Daenerys. She dove aside. Spear grazed shoulder, armor rhyming instantly. Jon roared, swinging upward. The Night King caught blade with bare hand. Frost raced along metal toward Jon's hilt. Ned knew next heartbeat would decide realms. He sprinted. Yet another cry cleaved air ghost. The dire wolf leapt, jaws clamping Night King's other arm. Surprise flared in blue eyes. Jon wrenched Longclaw free, slashed again. Frost shattered. Yet Night King regained stance, sending Ghost tumbling with backhand. Daenerys, breath steam, rose behind him and plunged a rack of dragonglass into his spine. The blade pierced, cracks spidered luminous. The Night King's body glowed fisher blue, then exploded in silent burst of ice dust, scattering snow like shards of stars. Across plain whites jerked, eye fire extinguished. They collapsed, brittle marionettes cut from strings. Giants toppled with ground-shaking crashes. Silence spread until wind alone breathed. The living stood stunned. Ned reached Jon, grasped him by shoulders. Both men trembled, not from cold but enormity. Daenerys knelt stricken as healers attended her frostbitten arm. Drogon landed, curling protective neck around. Bran's vacant gaze focused. One cord severed, but the loom yet spins. Others weave his place. Jon exhaled ragged. Then we hunt them all. The dead host's ruins burned for 3 days. Black smoke coiled into aurora-lit nights. Regal recovered, spear shard extracted by unsullied medics and Sam's trembling hands. Wildlings sang dirges by fire, unsullied stood silent guard, and Watch brothers mixed ashes with pitch to tar weak points in wall. Inside Eastwatch's war room, Ned dictated missives. One to Sansa, hold Winterfell, strengthen hearths, hearts. One to Jaime, Night King slain, yet darkness lingers. Send Tyrell harvest now. One to the Vale, the realm's survival outweighs old feuds. March north. He wrote until fingers cramped, then pressed wax with direwolf seal. Jon entered, limping, carrying horn of warm sour goat milk. Dragonslayer's breakfast, he joked. Ned accepted. Did you sleep? Enough to dream of blue eyes melting. Jon leaned on table. We must strike remaining walkers before they gather. Scout ravens show clusters near the Frostfangs, others in far west. Daenerys joined, arm bandaged, eyes rimmed red yet blazing purpose. I fly at dawn, she said. Regal and Viserion with me. Drogon needs rest but will follow. No, Ned said quietly. They looked at him. The realm cannot lose its only dragons to unseen foe. One dragon with Jon, one with me, one remains to guard the wall. Jon frowned. I'm no dragon rider. Daenerys met his gaze as though reading a riddle. Targaryen blood rides fire. Jon blinked. My blood. Ned closed eyes. Secrets he bore since Winterfell's crypt pressed heavy. But hearts no longer had luxury of lies. Your mother was Lyanna, he said, voice low. Your father, Rhaegar Targaryen. Silence. The hall's torches crackled like distant thunder. Jon's face paled. You swore. To protect you, even from your name, Ned breathed. The dead do not honor vows of old. Now truth may arm you. Daenerys stepped closer, gloved fingers brushing Jon's sleeve. You are blood of the dragon. Regal chose you before I knew why. Jon stared at ground, as though seeking lost boy he once was. At last he lifted eyes, resolve forged anew. Then let me carry that fire. They convened on cliff above Eastwatch where dawn kindled sea into molten glass. Regal knelt, scarred chest patched. Jon approached. The dragon's golden green eye studied him, pupils narrowing. Jon placed hand on warm scale. A tremor passed through both. He climbed neck ridges, settling behind skull horns. Ned watched, all laced with paternal worry sharper than any sword. Daenerys mounted Viserion beside him. Winds roared. Dragons leapt, stabbing sky, wings crashing like thunderclap. Snow flurries spiraled off slopes. Ned turned to Grey Worm, Davos, Tyrion. Hold Eastwatch until Bran sees next move. I ride west to the Frostfangs tonight. Tyrion scoffed lightly. You'll outpace the rumors. They'll call you Ghost Wolf now. Names matter little, Ned replied, tightening cloak. The living matter. Brienne strode up, sword at hip. I ride with you. As will I, said Tormund, clapping back. Can't let Crowlord chase Winter alone.
Ned nodded.
A spear point of 50 riders would cut across frozen rivers, carry dragonglass to beleaguered hill clans fighting pockets of dead. Speed again over comfort. He visited Bran once more. The boy's voice whispered like wind in leaves. I can guide ravens to your path, he said. Look for them when sky grows black. Ned kissed his brow. The realm owes you candlelight in longest night. Bran smiled faintly. I am the candle. That afternoon Eastwatch's gates opened again. Horses thundered out. Ned at front, ice gleaming dull silver. The sun hung wan as dying ember, stiff breeze keening between walls shattered stones. Behind, dragons dwindled to specks racing west, tails trailing contrails of frost cloud. They traversed frozen coastline where sea ice creaked beneath hooves, where stranded ships lay half-consumed by frost, masts jutting like ribs of fallen Leviathan. At night they bivouacked in ruined watchposts, sharing salt pork and stale onion bread, their laughter brittle but alive. On the third dusk ravens flocked overhead in dense swirl, just as Bran had promised. Shortly after, corpses stirred among stone spires ahead, dozens, maybe hundreds. Ned raised fist. Riders fanned out, forming ragged wedge. Brienne unsheathed Oathkeeper, Valyrian steel shimmering blood dark. They charged. Ned's mount crashed into first white, hooves pulverizing brittle skull. Ice cleaved left, right, each stroke scattering shards of bone that glimmered in low light. Tormund decapitated 3 with 2 swings, roaring songs of bear lovers. Brienne fought silent, grim. A horn blast rose from hillside. Karstark banners emerged. Men previously thought lost, rallying behind Ned's emblem sewn of patchwork. Their sudden arrival broke Dead's flank. Within minutes the field fell still, white with fragments. A lone White Walker lingered among last standing stones, pale blade of frost in hand. Ned dismounted, stepped forward alone. Snow whispered beneath boots. The Walker's gaze was ancient hate. They clashed, ice ringing against crystal, sparks of frost and smoke. Each blow jarred Ned's arms, yet purpose lent strength. At last he fainted high, rolled to side, and Brienne, having circled wide, drove Oathkeeper through Walker's back. The body imploded in storm of ice dust. Wind howled victory. Karstark captain, a youth with half-healed scar, knelt before Ned. "We fought north when Lord Bolton fell," he said. "Thought ourselves forgotten. No Northman is forgotten," Ned vowed. "Stand. You ride with us now." Torchlines flickered through dark as new allies joined column. They pressed west, ever west, toward Frostfang Passes Bran had marked. Layers of remaining walkers. Days bled into nights, nights into days without boundary. Snowstorms veiled sun. Men rode by starlight, by will. Far above, Jon on regal scouted crags. He sent Raven to Ned describing first nest of walkers. An ice citadel perched upon precipice, baleful light within. Ned quickened march. At Skirling Pass they fought again. The dead there were fewer but fiercer, armored in bronze turned white, blades that sang cold agony. Yet unsullied detachments struck with phalanx discipline, dragonglass punching through armor plates cracks left by Jon's dragon fire strafes. Inside the citadel's heart they found a crystal obelisk pulsing faint azure. Mira guessed it was anchor of death magic. Ned took ice and shattered it. A roar like glacier caving echoed. Remote whites collapsed miles away. Victory rings hollow without cost. Dozens fell, their names etched into Ned's memory. Holger of Last Hearth, killed protecting a wildling child. Ser Talbot Sarsfield, gut ripped but laughing he'd die warm in battle. Unsullied soldier 1739, eyes calm as he bled out. Ned ordered cairns built, each stone set with dragonglass blades so even in death they would fight the dead. On 10th day they crossed into shivering forest where frost-laden pines twined overhead. Their ravens perched on nearly every branch, silent sentinels. Bran's eyes, they guided to glade where hot spring bubbled, steam rising in swirling columns. Gift of Earth's heart. Men washed grime, women mended cloaks, spirits thawed. Tyrion, cloak crusted with icicles, joined Ned on fallen log. "We draw closer to end of known world," he mused, sipping watered wine. "What waits beyond? A dawn? An abyss? Perhaps both," Ned said, watching steam ghost among trunks like lost souls. Tyrion smirked. "If dawn, songs will praise your name. Songs fade."
Ned rubbed scarred neck.
"Better leave fields ready for new seed." Tyrion raised cup. "To seed of tomorrow." Brienne approached with letter borne by Kestrel. Sansa's hand informing that Vale's knights rode north. Jaime sent grain caravans, and Cersei remained silent inside Silent Sisters convent. Hope flickered brighter than campfire.
Ned slept briefly beneath Firbuks.
He dreamed of Winterfell halls alive with laughter, of Catelyn's smile by hearth, of Arya spinning with needle, of Bran climbing broken tower. He woke before dawn with tears frozen on lashes, but heart steady. March continued. Atop Frostfang Plateau they confronted final bastion. A chasm split by thunderbolt millennia past, within which glaciers reflected pale aurora. At its center a dais of black ice held 7 cloaked figures, the last walkers, chanting windless song, weaving shards of snow into forms half-born. Around them circled dead mammoths, skull eyes glowing. Jon and Daenerys swooped, flames rippling, yet cloaked figures raised staffs. Shimmering shield of frost deflected fire, swirling into blizzard that slapped dragons sideways. Regal shrieked. Viserion smashed wings against barrier. Unsullied and Karstark's lined ridge but could find no path across chasm. Ned scanned panorama. Only broken pillar of rock bridged gap, narrow as cart axle. He sheathed ice. "I cross." Brienne seized his arm. "Too narrow. Then narrow path suits narrow chance." He beckoned Tormund. The wildling grinned wolfishly. Together with 5 light-footed watch rangers they inched along pillar, wind knifing. Below yawned abyss swallowing snow into darkness.
Halfway, white falcons dove, talons razor sharp.
Ned swung torch, catching one aflame. Another slashed Tormund's cheek. He punched it into yawning void. They reached dais edge. Cloaked walkers turned. eyes like distant moons. Their chant thickened air. Ned felt blood slow. He hurled dragonglass javelin. It shattered on shield. A walker gestured. Ice sprouted, shackling Ranger's legs. Ned cleaved chain with ice, though flesh chilled instantly. Tormund roared, flung obsidian axe. It spun through barrier, cracks spidered. Droplets of molten frost hissed. Dragons seized moment. Drogon, fully recovered, dove from cloud, unleashing flame so white it blinded. Shield ruptured with sound like glaciers exploding. Walkers staggered. Ned charged. First walker raised staff. Ice sliced diagonal, splitting mask and skull. Second thrust frostblade. Ned parried, felt numb shock. Brienne, who had followed despite order, leapt and stabbed from side with Oathkeeper. Walker fell. Remaining 5 coalesced, forming ring. Their song pitched high. Snow whirled violently, choking breath. But on ridge unsullied horns sounded. Arrows of dragonglass rained, guided by Bran's ravens that perched on arrow shafts mid-flight, subtly adjusting trajectories. Each arrow found chink. Each walker screamed shard shriek as body shattered to hail. When last fragment struck platform, a silence deeper than caverns settled. Mammoths collapsed, dead undone. Blizzard ceased. Sky cleared to reveal dawn's first rays cresting distant peaks, coloring ice in rose gold. Across chasm cheers rose, mingling with dragons' triumphant roars. Ned stood amid rubble, shoulders sagging not from weight of armor but release of years-long dread he had barely known he carried. Jon landed regal on plateaus flat, hurried across ruined dais to embrace his father. They held a long moment. Daenerys approached, bandaged arm resting lightly on Ned's pauldron. "You broke Winter's spear," she said. "Together we did," he answered. Yet Bran's distant voice whispered through ravens. "Winterfell here, but seasons twist. Guard hearts. Storms return in forms unseen." The march back to civilization felt unreal, as though waking from fever dream. Villages they passed stared wide-eyed at dragons overhead, then wept with relief when unsullied distributed bread from Tyrell grain. At Winterfell gates Sansa and Arya waited. Snowflakes kissed Sansa's braid. Arya's eyes shimmered like northern lights. Ned dismounted, arms open. They collided in embrace strong enough to mend worlds. Bran arrived, wheeled by Podrick Payne, smile gentle, as though he had always known this ending. Feasts filled Winterfell's hall for 3 days. Quiet affairs, heavy on remembrance. Bowls of rabbit stew served beside empty chairs set for the fallen. Northern bards sang old songs while dragonfire crackled outside in braziers lit by Drogon's breath. Melting snowdrifts so children skated in slush. On 4th morning Ned climbed battlements with Jon and Daenerys. Dawn cast long blue shadows. Far south, storms still threatened. Euron's ironborn, uncertain loyalties of reach, whispers of Sellsword companies massing in Pentos. Yet horizon now felt conquerable. Jon looked west. "We write a peace forged in dragonglass and ice." Daenerys inclined head. "And hold it with mercy." Ned rested hand on both their shoulders. "Let us govern as living folks should, with remembrance of death and gratitude for dawn." Below, the courtyard bustled. Unsullied drilling young squires, Karstark survivors helping rebuild smithy under Gendry's direction, Tyrion teaching small folk, some using goat bones as counters, Tormund telling giants' tales to awestruck toddlers, Brienne sparring Podrick until his blade whistled true. Life resumed, fragile yet stubborn. In crypt that evening Ned knelt by Lyanna's statue. The torch flickered, casting her face into expression more peaceful than in memory. He placed single dragonglass blade at her feet. "Your son knows," he whispered, "and he is worthy." A soft footfall. Jon stood at archway, candle in hand. He joined Ned, knelt. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" "For lies that kept me safe. For truths that make me whole." Ned drew him into embrace. No more lies. His heart felt lighter, though scar still throbbed. They departed crypt together, ascending into night alive with Aurora. ribbons of green and purple fluttering like realm-wide banners celebrating survival. Drogon lifted into sky, a comet of black flame, joined by Regal and Viserion. Beneath them, Winterfell's towers glittered with fresh ice that glowed lambent under shifting lights, as though castle itself breathed with new heart. And in that breath, Ned Stark finally allowed himself to believe that something stronger than winter, stronger than war, might grow. Something called peace, imperfect and fleeting but real enough to fight for, to die for, and, when fortune favored, to live for again and again under the endless turning skies of the north.